Hello everybody and welcome to The Bearded Fool Gaming. As some of you may know, I'm a pretty big fan of Magic the Gathering. Play it on the weekends pretty regularly. Got into the competitive scene there for a bit until I horribly burnt myself out by playing the same deck and losing about 12 weekends in a row or so. But I'm getting back into it. New set's getting ready to release, so it seems like a good time to start taking it a little more seriously and such again. We'll see where all that goes. So what today is going to be it's going to be a let's talk about Aether Revolt. So the way I like to talk about sets is from a limited perspective. That means seal, draft, things like that. I'll have some commentary on the standard implications of the cards, but primarily my focus is on the limited environment. So today is day one of the Aether Revolt official spoilers. There's obviously been a few others spoiled a couple days back before the end of the year there. So if you guys are tuning in live, please, chats are open. I'd definitely like to hear any feedback that you have, anything that you think, about Aether Revolt. Any cards that you think are going to be standouts. If you think my opinions are right or wrong, let me know, because that is what I am here to say and do. So let's go ahead and jump into this. Of course, keep in mind the Aether Revolt pre-releases are coming up on January 14th and 15th, so you better go out to your local store and play. Release weekend, of course, the week after that. So, as I said, there's not been a lot spoiled, so we should be able to go through everything that's been spoiled so far today. Shouldn't take us very long at all. So what we're going to do is just start at the beginning, and we'll look. I'm using MTG Salvation is the website I'm using. So we're just going to use their little filter here and look through everything that they've put out. So we'll go ahead and jump right in. So starting with colorless, which for some reason is under colorless instead of artifact. I'm not sure why, but whatever, MTG Salvation, fix it. But anyway, so we have Foundry Assembler. I like this card. It's an assembly worker, which you know what that means. It works with its good friend from the other one. What's the other assembly worker called? I can't think of it. Got to look it up now. Let's look this up here. Assembly worker. What was it called? Oh yeah, self-assembler, duh. So now we have good old self-assembler from Kaladesh, which can actually tutor out itself and also can tutor out the new Foundry Assembler. So this one has one of the new keywords from this set, and that is improvise. Pretty similar to Convoke for those of you that are familiar with that. All it is you can tap artifacts to pay for one colorless of the casting cost of the card. In other words, Foundry Assembler can cost 5, or with one artifact it can cost 4. With 5 artifacts it can cost 0. It's only a 3/3 with no abilities, so it's nothing super special. It's really more of just a curve filler / creature. But I'm a fan of the assembly worker line and such, so I think it's kind of cool they gave us another one. I'm also interested to see how Improvise plays out, if it's going to be super powerful, if it's going to be near broken affinity, or if it's going to be, just its own little thing. So we'll see where that goes, but hopefully Improvise turns out to be an interesting ability. So let's move on to white here. Only a few cards for this. Starting with the first one, we have good old Aeronaut Admiral. So he's a 3/1 flyer for 4, 3 and 1 white, and all your vehicles have flying. This guy seems pretty solid. I think he obviously excels in a vehicle-centered deck, but even on his own, he isn't the worst. A 3/1 flyer isn't the best because Thopters do exist, so he's easily chumped if you are against one of those. But it's still a flyer. Flyers are very strong in Kaladesh Limited. If that will hold true in Aether Revolt Limited, I believe it will. I could be wrong, but I think that this guy is going to be playable regardless, and awesome if you can get him in the vehicle deck. We have Consulate Crackdown. This is an enchantment for 3 and 2 white, and whenever it enters the battlefield, you exile all artifacts your opponents control until it leaves the battlefield. So it's one of those kind of O-ringy effects, but it hits all artifacts, but it's 5 mana. This is a card that I don't think is actually that strong. It seems like it's probably going to be sideboard material, maybe in Constructed, maybe in some other formats, maybe like EDH or Commander, you know, it seems like it'll be pretty awesome in that, but otherwise it doesn't really appeal to me. From a limited perspective, I don't think it's going to be great. I don't even know if I would draft it high. I think this would be like a late, you know, probably a pass rare. I don't think it's very good at all. But, you know, I mean, if you do get it in a limited environment, you can put it in that sideboard. And if your opponent goes big with artifacts, it could be a total blowout. So we'll see how the format shakes down before we give a full viewpoint on that one. But first impressions are not high. Moving on, we have Decommission. This is 2 and a white for an instant that destroys target artifact or enchantment. And as one of the new keywords, well, is that keyword? Doesn't have another word for the ones in italics. Can't remember. I don't think it's keyword. I think there's another term for that. But anyway, it's Revolt. So now the way Revolt works is that if a permanent you control leaves the battlefield for any reason, Revolt essentially turns on for that turn, and you get additional abilities on your cards. So for Decommission, what it does is that you also gain 3 life. So Decommission, I think, is actually really strong in Kaladesh / Aether Revolt Limited just because there is such an emphasis on artifacts, obviously. The fact it also hits enchantments is partially relevant, but obviously it's primarily going to be an artifact removal spell. Thinking back to Fragmentize, you know, from Kaladesh with 1 white to destroy an artifact or enchantment that costs 4 or less. That was actually a pretty solid card, definitely main deckable, and I think Decommission is that probably a little better. You know, maybe it does cost more, but life gain is actually relevant and limited oftentimes, and just the instant speed is super relevant for Decommission also. So I think this will be one it's not going to be a high pick in draft or anything, but it's going to be one that you're always happy to see if you're in white. Moving on to another rare, we have SRAM. I guess that's how you pronounce it. Maybe Sam with a silent R. I'm not sure. But anyway, we got SRAM Senior Edificer here. So he's a legendary creature dwarf, so that's relevant. And whenever you cast an aura, equipment, or vehicle, you draw a card. As the article that was out today was talking about, you know, they're always afraid to give white card draw, but it's situational card draw like this is okay. And I like this card. I like the creatures and such that reward you for playing auras and equipments and things like that. And it's cool that SRAM here also catches vehicles. Considering he's legendary, he'll probably have some implications in some type of commander deck if we get enough vehicles for that. But regardless, he seems pretty solid. A 2/2 for 2 is playable regardless. It's nothing good, but if you have any aura, equipment, or vehicles in your deck, which I'm imagining most people have a couple vehicles at least, he seems pretty solid. I see no reason not to play him. I would like to see him. I'd love to build the deck around him, you know, have a Mr. Aeronaut Admiral here and go ahead and toss in a SRAM along with it. That just seems like a fun deck, and I think that would be really cool. So SRAM definitely seems like a powerhouse in Limited, and I'm anxious to see what we can do with him. Moving on, we have another SRAM card, but this time it's SRAM's Expertise. So this is a cycle of cards that each color is going to be getting. Oh, I think only 2 of them are spoiled so far. And how they work is they have, I believe both of them cost 4 so far. I'm not sure if the others are planned to or not. But essentially they do 2 things for you. They do their ability, and then they also let you cast a 3 or less card from your hand for free. So for good old SRAM's Expertise here, for 4 mana you get 3 1/1s. Yeah, that seems kind of bad, right? I mean, you got Server Exhibition where you get 2 1/1s for 2 mana, and this is 4 and you only get 3. Seems kind of like a ripoff to me. But then you also get the awesome extra ability of casting any card that costs 3 or less from your hand without paying its mana cost. Note here, it doesn't have to be white or anything. That allows you to play, especially allows you to kind of splash your alternate color, your low drops in alternate colors and such. So maybe you were light on removal and you got a single welding sparks or something. Well, hey, I'll play SRAM's Expertise here. I'll get 3 servers, and for the heck of it, I'll go ahead and burn off something for free. So it seems really strong. I think all the Expertise cards are going to see play in Limited and Constructed. So I'm anxious to see where that line goes and what the other ones offer. I think they're pretty cool. For this one, getting the artifacts is relevant. That's potentially 3 artifact ETBs. And there's just a lot that goes along with the Expertise cards, and SRAM's is no exception. It's pretty solid. So let's move on to blue here. Blue, we have one of my favorite counterspells, Disallow. So for 1/2 blue, it's a better cancel. It can counter any spell, activated ability, or triggered ability. That has lots of implications because there's a lot of very interesting things that you can do with that. You know, maybe I think this is actually a very limited playable counterspell too. I'm not sure how high I would take it in draft. It definitely depends upon how strong blue is in Aether Revolt, because I feel like blue was generally one of the weaker ones in Kaladesh Limited, unless you got the ultimate artifact Gearseeker Serpent deck. But the ability to counter any triggered ability and activated ability is pretty awesome. Of course, you can't hit mana abilities, but say your opponent, maybe they spend all their energy on something to try to make a dude or something, making like the creatures off the green creature that spends energy to make 6/6 beasts or whatever. Well, you just counted that, and they spent all their energy. Or maybe you got a Gearhulk trigger. Oh man, somebody played that white Gearhulk getting ready to wipe your board. Not so much. You're gonna just disallow that. And then of course you have the option to just counter spells outright, and it just seems like a lot of really interesting applications for that. And I'll be interested to see if that has any constructive playability too, which I think it might. 3-mana counterspells are never the best, but maybe, just maybe. Moving on, we have Quicksmith Spy. Quicksmiths seem to be a cycle of cards also that seem to be the jank rares of the set. So this one is 3 and a blue. When it enters the battlefield, an artifact you control gains tap, draw a card for as long as you control Quicksmith Spy. It's kind of cool in that it replaces itself immediately. You play it, and you get to go ahead and draw a card, whenever you want, basically. So it's not the worst thing ever, but a 2/3 for 4 is nothing that special. It is an Artificer, which is relevant if you get the goggles or something like that, but I'm not impressed with the Quicksmith line so far. They just seem to be decent and limited. I don't think they're something you pass up. I think they are first pickable in most cases, but they're just nothing that's going to blow me away. Drawing a card is pretty strong, especially when you can do it for free each turn, but you got to keep a 2/3 around, and I don't know. Kaladesh seems to have a lot of removal in it, so we'll see what happens. Maybe I'm underestimating them, but the Quicksmiths do not seem very strong to me. Moving on to Shipwreck Moray. So this is a good old fish here. A 0/5 for 4. 5 is a magical number in Magic recently, as anybody that plays it knows. 4 is the ultimate magic number. 5 is like the best magic number with a little extra. And so this guy's a cool little morphling spin here. So he's a good old energy mechanic. When you play him, you get 4 energy. And you can pay a single energy to give him +2/-2. Sadly, you can't do it the other way around. It's no, oh gosh, I can't remember card names today. The 3-drop that you could, was kind of a morphling from Kaladesh. It's not as good as that guy, I don't believe, but it's pretty cool to have that as an option. I mean, essentially, you just by playing him, you have a 0/5 that can become a 2/3, that can become a 4/1, and that's relevant. It's also good just to gather 4 energy. Blue seems to really be able to give you a lot of energy now, so that's cool too. Mostly a curve filler, but I could see him being decently decent in limited. Moving along, we have Trophy Mage. Trophy Mage seems pretty cool if the Aether Revolt provides her with something to be cool with. So we got a 2/2 Human Wizard for 3, that's 2 and a blue. And whenever she ETBs, you search your deck for an artifact that costs 3. It's not 3 or less, 3. So what artifacts cost 3 in Standard, you ask? Well, I looked up the list, and there's not much, really. She seems kind of built for the... why can I not remember card names today? Dang. What is the card? The Dynavolt Tower. There we go. Because she can tutor out Dynavolt Tower, and Dynavolt decks are usually blue-red anyway. So that seems like an implication for her. But otherwise, there doesn't seem to be that many tutors. Limited, I don't think this is a high-pick card unless you got a Dynavolt or something that you want to tutor at specifically 3. But I have a feeling she'll actually be constructed played in some decks. She just seems like a good card. Reminds me of similar cards that came out in the past. Generally, tutors that are essentially free tutors are pretty strong, and hopefully this card's cool. I like what it does, and I hope to see it do some interesting things. We have another rare here as Whir of Invention. This is an X and 3 blue spell with Improvise, which has some interesting implications. So the ability is just to search your library for an artifact with converted mana cost X or less and put it straight onto the battlefield. So now that's pretty powerful. Let me search my deck for my Gear Hulk. Let me search my deck for my Metalwork Colossus. Let me search my deck for, you know, whatever I want to get just to kind of pop off you know, maybe there's an artifact removal. Maybe you want to get your equipment. Maybe you want to get fill in the blank here. A lot of implications to this, and I think this is probably going to be used in some type of combo deck. It seems like a Johnny-ish deck, a Johnny-ish card, but I think it's pretty strong considering the improvise mechanic. You know, say you've turned 1 or 2, got out a couple servos. You know, you've played out just a typical equipment or generic artifact or something. Maybe you got a you know. Just a generic artifact in the set. Well, I mean, that alone is going to give you like 2 or 3 mana, plus whatever mana you want to get. So, I mean, you could easily pull out a 2 or 3 cost. But if you have like a deck that's able to pump out tokens, you know, maybe you get like some weird blue-white token deck or something. I mean, that's going to be awesome, you know, just to pay, tap your field. It's instant. That's what's super important in this card is it's an instant, not a sorcery. That means you can do it at the end of your turn. Oh, let me just tap my board and go get whatever I want for the next turn. If it was a sorcery, wouldn't be very good. As an instant, it has a lot of power behind it. And I think this is going to be some type of deck is out there somewhere that's going to really abuse this card, and it's going to be a fun deck to see go off. Not sure what it's going to do exactly, but I'm anxious to see where it goes. And in Limited, it's not a big top priority pick or anything, but if you have that Gear Hulk or, you know, you have that Super Bomb artifact, you're probably going to play it. Moving on to black, only got a few cards here. First up, we have Battle at the Bridge. Another improvised card, and it's simply give a creature -X, and gain X life. Consider this as improvised, it has more implications as always. Improvise seems like a pretty cool mechanic, especially if you have like the black-white value deck. Oh, this card seems sick in that. Oh, let me go ahead, you know, I've blinked around. I have, you know, 6 or 7 servos along with just some other generic artifacts. Yeah, I'll just go ahead and, you know, kill one of your creatures. Oh, and I'll gain 10 life, by the way. That seems pretty strong to me. Again, life gain is surprisingly relevant in Kaladesh Limited, and this seems like not only is it a removal spell, sadly a sorcery, but it'd probably be OP as an instant. But the gain life ability is actually super relevant too. And if you happen to get some type of infinite mana combo, well, there's your way to gain infinite life. Not to mention that also allows it to be used in like the infinite servo deck and standard to gain infinite life. So we'll see what it does. But I like the card. I definitely think it's playable, probably first pickable for sure, and it's even better if you can improvise it. Moving on, we have Fatal Push. You guys hate Smuggler's Copter. They get it. They printed an answer. This card is going to be probably one of the highest cost uncommons, I imagine, especially the foils. This card seems super good. 1 black, instant, destroy a creature if it has converted mana cost 2 or less. It also has that new Revolt mechanic that we referenced to destroy any creature with 4 or less. So, that gives some interesting implications. Oh, we did a trade in combat. You've got your 3-drop, 4-drop creature that survived. Well, since I lost a creature, you're going to lose yours for 1 black. It's an instant. Oh, you're going to swing with that Smuggler's Copter? Well, before attackers, I'll just kill it. Sorry you tapped your creature for it. Just seems like there's so much good that can come from this. It's going to be one of the best cards from Aether Revolt, I imagine. Even just without Revolt, destroying a 2 or less is very relevant. There's a lot of really good 1 and 2 drops. That destroys Grim Flayer, that destroys so many good things in Constructed. It's just a bomb. It's a bomb in Limited. It's a bomb in Constructed. And I'm so glad they printed it as just a direct answer to Smuggler's Copter. Moving on, we have a common is Night Market Aeronaut. 2/2 flyer for 4 with Revolt. Its Revolt ability is that try that again. It enters with a +1/+1 counter if permanent you control left the battlefield. It's very interesting, the Revolt mechanic, because it's going to have so many implications in not only playing stuff during your second main phase, but also in like bouncing your own stuff, things like that. Aviary mechanic seems really strong with that. You know, the blue double bounce spell seems really strong with that. So there's lots of interesting things that come from that. So a 2/2 flyer for 4 is not good, but a 3/3 flyer for 4 is pretty dang solid. So he seems like he's more of a curve filler than anything else. You know, I would probably still rather have the bat. You know, it's just a 3-drop, potentially 3/1, but hey. Night Market Aeronaut's there, and he'll probably see some play in Limited. We have Yahini's Expertise. That goes along with the Expertise cycle I referenced before. Another 4-drop in 2/2 black. Another extremely solid card. They are giving black the nut stuff, I'm telling you right now. All creatures get -3/-3 until end of turn. Not quite a languish, but hey, let's also give you that free cost of a creature that costs, sorry, a spell that costs 3 or less. I mean, this is just, once again, absurd, you know. I mean, there's so many implications, you know. You can turn it into a language. Maybe you play Yahini's Expertise to give creatures -3/-3. Still need to get that 4/4 still out there. Let's just go ahead and cast this, you know, 3-cost spell that gives all creatures -1/-1. Well, you've just languished. Granted, you did have to do 2 cards to do it, but it's the fact that it gives you those options. Just giving 3/3 to everything is super relevant. The fact that you get to play a free thing, just so many implications. Let me wipe the board and then get a creature out for 4 mana. That seems so powerful to me. Limited bomb, constructed bomb, black is going to be strong, and it's scary that the big deck right now is freaking black-green Delirium, and they get stuff like that. Man, that's just nasty. Let me wipe your board, blue-white control, and I'll just get a Grim Flayer out there for the heck of it. That seems a little absurd to me, but we'll see how it shakes down. Moving on, we have red. Red has some interesting cards, but nothing really amazing so far. We've got a good old Shivan Dragon here. Oh, sorry, Free Gem Regent. So it's a 4 and 2 red, 4/4 flyer with Improvise, which is pretty cool. And it has kind of bad fire breathing. I'm really curious as to why they didn't just give typical fire breathing to it. And I'm really not sure why. I don't know if it's to make it less red-centric, if it's to make it more awkward. I don't know what the reasoning was, but regardless, it seems pretty awesome. It's a bomb and limited. Probably won't see any constructed play, of course, but hey, that is a potential 4/4 flyer on much earlier than turn 6, if you got some improvisation out there. I could easily see this dropping on turn 4, maybe on turn 3 if you get like a crazy, you know, servo exhibition off turn 2. And, you know, I've got turn 3, that's 5 mana. Maybe I play another artifact. I don't know. There's just a lot of implications from that. Seems like a really strong limited card, so it's a play it if you got it. Nothing to write home about, but I like it. Moving along, we have Pious Revolution. It's an enchantment with whenever a Whenever a non-token artifact is put into your graveyard from the battlefield, you can return it to your hand unless an opponent has it deal 3 damage to her. This seems like jank. It's a story card, and that seems like really all it's there for. Cards that give your opponents choices are generally bad. Few exceptions here and there, but it just doesn't seem that strong. You know, artifacts, if they came back to play or something, I could see that being busted, but as it is, they just go back to your hand. I mean, I don't know. It doesn't seem that strong. Who's going to want to take 3 damage? Yeah, you can have your Prophetic Prism back. Yeah, you can have your Self-Assembler back. I don't care about those. You've wasted 3 mana on an enchantment that's going to do nothing, potentially. Seems like jank. Probably is jank, so let's jank it up. Moving on, we got another of the Quicksmith cycle. This is Quicksmith Rebel at 3 and a red, a 3/2. Decent stats, a little high-costed. But its ability is that it gives one of your artifacts tap to deal 2 to target creature or player. Of course, for as long as you control the Quicksmith. I don't think this one's as good as the blue one, because dealing 2 damage, although it does win you the game faster than drawing cards, it doesn't seem as strong. Maybe I'm underestimating the Quicksmith cycle. Maybe they're going to be crazy limited bombs, but I just don't see it. For some reason, I do feel like this is going to go in some random infinite combo, just because it's going to give an artifact just tap, deal 2, and there's so many ways to untap stuff, it seems, but I don't know. It seems like a strong card that I would play for sure. There's no reason not to play it, but again, I'm not amazed with the Quicksmith cycle. We'll see where they go. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm not having high hopes. So quite an interesting card coming up next. This is a Siege modification. So it's an aura enchantment. I know, you're turning over and stomach's churning. I said aura. But hear me out. This actually seems decent. I'm not going to say it seems good. So what it does is you enchant a creature or a vehicle. If you enchant a creature, it simply gives it +3/+0 and first strike, which is pretty bad for an aura at 3 mana. But if you enchant it to a vehicle, then that vehicle constantly becomes a creature, and because it's a creature, it then gets the +3/+0 and first strike. So considering how undercosted vehicles are with their power and toughness, they leave some interesting implications. So for example, let's go ahead and skip ahead here for just a second and take a look at good old Consulate Dreadnought here. So this is a 7/11 for 1. Yeah, it may have crew 6, but guess what? If you happen to have a siege modification on turn 3, you just may have a 10/11 first strike on turn 3. Now, you're probably going to get 2 for 1 if they have straight-up artifact removal, but doesn't that seem pretty strong? I mean, maybe that's the nuts draw that I'm thinking about, but siege modification seems kind of bad and just kind of crazy good at the same time. I'm not sure if it'll be used, really. If you get the vehicle deck, I could see it maybe being a one-of. But it's just interesting. It kind of is bad in a way, though, because it makes your vehicle constantly a creature, which is one of the good things about vehicles is that they're not subject to sorcery speed creature removal. I mean, maybe that's the trade-off for having a 10/11 on turn 3, but we'll see what happens. I'm not discounting siege modification entirely, and I'll kind of want to see it work. Next up, we have Sweatworks Brawler. This is a simple common as a 3/3 menace for 4. That's playable. It's not amazing, not bad, just playable. But considering it also has Improvise, it seems like it's going to be pretty strong. You know, again, maybe you play a Servo Exhibition, maybe you play a 2-drop that makes a token. Maybe you just play a 2-drop artifact. You know, maybe you play your Prophetic Prism or something. I don't know. But considering that just becomes a 3/3 for 3, then maybe you play the Dreadnought here on turn 1, and you play him like that. I mean, there's just some interesting implications. He probably won't come out faster than turn 3, but a 3/3 with menace for 3 seems pretty strong. Moving on to green, we've barely seen anything in green, so we don't know what this set's going to have, but we've got a couple rares and a common here. So first up, we've got a rare, interesting card, actually. This is a Greenbelt Rampager. It's a 3/4 creature for a 1 green. Whoa, what did you say? A 3/4 creature for 1 green? That has to have some huge drawback. Well, actually, it doesn't really have a drawback, per se. I guess it really is a drawback, but anyway. Whenever you play it, you have to pay 2 energy. That's not optional. You pay the 2 energy. If you can't pay the energy, then it goes back to your hand, and you get an energy. So is it a drawback, or is it an advantage? So on turn 1, I can play Greenbelt Rampager, and I get 1 energy, and that's it. Is it really worth tapping out for 1 energy for 1 green? I guess that depends on the deck. But considered it is a 3/4, seems pretty strong. I don't think there's a way to really get this out on turn 1 and be absurd, but turn 2 it seems very reliable. You know, let me search for that land to get 2 energy here. Turn 2, I'll just go ahead and play this guy. Now I've got a 3/4 on turn 2. He doesn't seem broken per se, but he definitely seems like he's going to be strong in some type of energy deck, so I'd say we'll see some green belts rampaging around. As far as limited, he'll probably fit pretty well. He has that magical 4 toughness, so he'll be in decks for sure. Next up, we've got another green card in Greenwill Liberator. This is a 2/1 for 2. It's not even a Grizzly Bear. Well, actually, it has Revolt. With Revolt, it comes in with 2 +1/+1 counters. So that means that you have potentially a 4/3 for 2 mana, which is absurd. So, how do you make this card good? You play a 1-drop creature, somehow it dies. Maybe you have the ability to sack. I don't know. But if somehow you get something removed from your field and drop this guy on turn 2, oh man. Considering it's also an elf, this has some interesting implications in other formats too. I don't play enough Modern to really know, and enough, Tiny Leaders and stuff to know, but it seems pretty strong. As far as limited, 4-3 is pretty solid anytime you play it, so I don't see a reason not to play it. Next up, we've got the good old Reacher of the set in Silkweaver Elite. It's a 2-2 Reach for 3. So that's kind of bad, actually. 2-2 isn't very good for your quote-unquote spider of the set, so what's the deal? Well, not really much of one. It simply has Revolt that you draw a card. It's kind of weird for green to get card draw, right? But it really is not. It's just replacing itself. I mean, I guess it's kind of cool to have a 2-2 Reach that you didn't lose a card for, maybe, but it's not even guaranteed. It's only if Revolt happened. I don't like it. I mean, you've got Consulate Skygate and stuff, you know, 0-4 Reach. It just seems so much better. I don't think Silkweaver is even playable in Limited, honestly. It just seems bad. It is an elf, but it's bad. Moving on to the multicolored set. These have been spoiled for a little while now, so we'll just kind of jump through them. Of course, we've got the 2 bad Planeswalkers of the set, and we've got the 2 good Planeswalkers of the set. Oh, so let's figure out which is which here. Let's see. Which one of these is a good one? Which one is the bad one? Alright, this looks like the good one. This looks like the bad one here. Alright, so we've got the good Ajani first. So we've got a new Planeswalker, of course, in Ajani. 4 green and the white. So it is a 6-drop. So it better do some good things. Starts at 4 loyalty, which seems a little low. So let's see what it does. So for its +2, you can reveal the top 3 cards of your library, and you put all non-land permanents into your hand, and the rest on the bottom. So he kind of filters out your draws. You know, I mean, you could potentially draw 3 cards in green-white. Seems pretty strong, and you're not getting any lands regardless, so pretty relevant ability. His -2 is simply exile target creature. That's pretty strong. Sure, his controller gains life equal to its power, but I'll play Swords to Plowshares, sure. You got his ult as a -9, which is interesting, because what it does is it puts 5 +1/+1 counters on each creature you control, and 5 loyalty on each other Planeswalker. It's pretty interesting how that works, actually. They're really trying to push this whole 5-color, 4-color Planeswalker decks. I'm not sure if they'll pick up, but if so, I'm sure Johnny will be in there. It's probably a one-of. He's definitely not the best Planeswalker that's ever been printed. He's not awful, but I don't think he's anything to write home about, honestly. Now, as I was saying about his ult number, it's interesting because he actually ults in 4 turns. A lot of Planeswalkers take 5 turns to go off, so the fact that he goes in at 4, immediately becomes 6, goes next turn to 8, next turn to 9, goes off on turn 4. Seems pretty interesting, but I don't know. We'll see what happens. Moving along, we've got a sorcery in Dark Intimations. It's that baby cruel ultimatum that we've always wanted. So it costs 2, a blue, black, red, bringing back the old Grixis feel there. So each opponent sacrifices a creature or planeswalker, then discards a card. And you return a creature or planeswalker from your grave to your hand and draw a card. And also, if you happen to cast a Bolas Planeswalker spell, you exile it and it gets an extra counter. This card seems either really, really bad or surprisingly good. I'm not sure which. For 5 mana to make them sack a creature or planeswalker and discard a card seems pretty bad. Even with the draw 1 and return 1, it just doesn't seem very good. I'm thinking the relevant ability is actually going to be the Planeswalker Loyalty relevant. Ability is going to be more relevant, but we'll see what Bolas looks like whenever they reveal him, if he's even in this set, which I'm assuming he will be. Next up, we've got the next Oath in the cycle, Oath of Ajani. This is aggressively costed at 1 green, 1 white for a legendary enchantment. When the enchantment enters the battlefield, you put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. That's pretty strong for just 2 mana. Goes along with the +1/+1 counter theme that green-white already has. And then plus its ability is actually to make your planeswalkers cost 1 less. As I said before, they're really pushing those planeswalker decks, and they may happen with cards like Oath. It just seems so good. I'm not sure that the abilities work well together, because I don't think you're going to have a lot of creatures and planeswalkers, so they seem kind of counterproductive, but I don't know. Maybe that green-white token deck doesn't exist after all. Moving on to our next planeswalker, we have the good Tezzeret of the set. So his ability, he starts at 5 loyalty, costs 4, so he's not too bad as far as the curve goes. So his ability is to create a colorless artifact token named Ethereum Cell with tap, sack, add a mana of any color to your mana pool. So if you want him to, he can essentially cost 3, although you can only play him on turn 4. He creates an artifact, so that's artifact ETBs. He filters your mana, which is pretty relevant. A lot of things that he does, but I'm not sure that anything he does was super good with that ability. Second ability is a -2 to give a creature +X -X, where X is the number of artifacts you control. This also seems kind of bad because it's so limited, by your artifacts. If you've only got a couple artifacts, it's not going to be relevant at all. And if you have too many artifacts, then it's just a glorified kill spell. I mean, it doesn't seem bad necessarily, but I'm not impressed with that ability either. Moving on, we've got his ultimate as -7, which is interesting. So you get an emblem with, at the beginning of combat on your turn, target artifact you control becomes an artifact creature with power and toughness 5/5. So that's not till end of turn. So essentially with his ult, what it does is at the end of your turn, one of your artifacts becomes a 5/5. That's requires you to have a lot of artifacts once again to be relevant. It doesn't actually apply pressure when it goes off. It seems like one of the worst Planeswalker Ultimates I've ever seen. Like, I'm really not impressed with this Tezzeret. Now, he goes off in 3 turns. You play him for 5. Next turn, he goes up to 6. Next turn, he goes up to 7. Third turn, he ults off. I don't know. He doesn't seem good to me. I'm sure he'll be used somewhat in some super artifact deck that can pump him out, but I don't know. I don't like him, and I don't think he's going to be that amazing. Next up, we've got a uncommon in Winding Constrictor. I like the art, like the name, like everything about this card. It's a 2/3 creature with the abilities of, if one or more counters would be placed on an artifact or creature you control, then you put an extra counter on it. If you yourself would get a counter, you get an extra counter of that. I'm almost curious if there isn't some way to abuse this in like an infect deck to like give it to your opponent somehow to make them take extra. I'm probably thinking too far out of the box, but this card just doesn't seem good. I mean, what counters are you gonna get really, other than like poison counters? I don't know. We'll see where that goes, but it's an interesting card with interesting things that could come from it, but as it stands, it's really a 2/3 with a partially relevant ability. The fact that he gets an extra counter is pretty strong and limited if you have the deck that it goes with, and a 2/3 for 2 is not bad at all. Moving on, we have the bad Ajani of the set in Ajani Valiant Protector. I don't like that they're printing these bad Planeswalkers, by the way. Have I said that? So anyway, Ajani Valiant Protector is 4, a green and white, just like his good brother there. He starts at 4 loyalty, just like his good brother there. And his first ability is a +2. You put 2 +1/+1 counters on each of up to 1 target creature. So, one creature gets 2 counters. That's it. Let's move on. His +1 is to reveal cards from the top of your deck until you reveal a creature. You put that into your hand and the rest on the bottom in a random order. This is probably his best ability. And it's also a +1, not a -1, so that's kind of cool too. So the fact that this allows you to kind of tutor, essentially, if you have the right deck to support it, I almost wonder if that doesn't have some playability. I don't think he's good. He's designed to be bad, but he's probably the best of the bad Planeswalker cycle that we've seen just because of that ability. His ult is pretty mediocre at -11. He puts X +1/+1 counters on a single creature, where X is your life total and that creature gets trampled. The ironic thing is that he's actually more relevant immediately than the good Tezzeret of the set, but it puts it all on one creature and that creature gets killed. Well, you just wasted your 11 loyalty counters. As said before, these are the bad Planeswalkers, and they are that in bad. So, not much to say. We'll see what you do, Valiant Protector. Moving on to Tezzeret, Master of Metal. Starts at 5 loyalty, but, he costs 6, so he's already kind of bad. +1 is to reveal cards on top of your library until you reveal an artifact. Put that into your hand and the rest on the bottom. Again, similar to his Johnny counterpart here, maybe there's some type of combo / synergy that kind of abuses that ability. And that's probably about all he has going for him. His -3, which is once again more relevant than his good counterpart, is target opponent loses life equal to the number of artifacts you control. That seems almost more playable than the second ability of the other one, so interesting. His -8 is to gain control of all artifacts and creatures target opponent controls. A little disappointed that it just doesn't say all players, because then it would actually have some playability in multiplayer formats. As it stands, that's completely pretty bad. Maybe useful and limited, otherwise it seems pretty bad. I don't really have anything to say. These Planeswalkers are not good, and they never will be. And note to Wizards, you probably shouldn't print bad Planeswalkers. It's not a good thing. Nobody likes them. Moving on, we have the artifacts. So we've already taken a little peek at Consulate Dreadnought here, and can I just say I love this card. It's 7/11, man. Everybody loves 7/11. So it's a 1-drop 7/11 vehicle, and of course it has a huge drawback in crew 6, which is absurd. What's interesting is there are other ways to crew it other than what you think, and we'll get to that in just a moment. So now we move on to one of the mythic artifacts of the set in Gonti's Aether Heart. This is a legendary artifact for 6. Whenever it or another artifact enters the battlefield, you get 2 energy. That's already pretty strong considering the implications with Fabricate and things like that. Then you can pay 8 energy, you exile the Aether Heart, and you take an extra turn. That seems pretty awesome. I like the card just from the fun factor of it, but I think its ability to just create 2 energy by itself and from every other artifact is where it's really going to shine. And whenever you've established the dominance from that, you just take an extra turn. You can do that at instant speed, and there's just so many implications from that. I love the card. I'm anxious and hoping to see it do something special. Next, we've got another mythic, and this is also kind of an answer to Smuggler's Copter, but not really. We got a 4/4 vehicle for 2 with flying and vigilance. Thank you, Wizards. I wanted the vehicle with vigilance so bad, and thank you for that. So its interesting ability is that it can actually use a loyalty counter from a Planeswalker to crew with. That's some interesting implications, right? It'd be good in that Planeswalker deck that they want everybody to build for some reason. Like I said, it seems like kind of an answer to Smuggler's Copter, but with a crew 3, it kind of isn't. So, I don't know. It doesn't seem as good as some of the other vehicles in the set. I mean, a 4/4 flying vigilance for 2 is totally relevant, but I'm not putting this up there anywhere near Copter unless a big Planeswalker deck kicks off. As far as limited, I would probably play it in that, but we'll see what happens. Next up, we've got a cool little shapeshifter in Metallic Mimic, 2/1 for 2. Whenever it enters the battlefield, you choose a creature type, and it is that type, in addition to still being shapeshifter. And each other creature you control of the chosen type enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it. This seems like something that's made for elves and things like that, but I like it too with servos. Hey, I'll play this guy on 2, and then, you know, hey, got us get a 2/2 servo from my Glint Sleeve Artisan, from my Propeller Pioneer, and oh, I'll go ahead and play my, you know, the card we looked at earlier to make 3. Well, they're actually 3 2/2s. And hey, why not, you know, play this to get 3 2/2s and play Mimic off of that for free, and I don't know. There's lots of implications. It seems like a pretty cool card. I like it. It's kind of flavorful too, so pretty cool card. I like the design of that. Good job, Wizards. Next up, we've got one of my guilty pleasures. I love frosting. Not frosting, that's not the right term. What's the word whenever you tap a creature? Orb of Winter, or whatever it is. I don't know. Anyway, Pacification Array is a 1-drop artifact, which I already like, with only 2 mana. Tap the artifact, tap target artifact or creature. I love this card. I really, really do. I love these little, you know, pseudo removal tappers, and this one is just one of the better ones. It's aggressively costed at only 2 mana to tap something down. And I'm going to play that card in every deck that I ever get it, no matter what, because I love it that much. Probably my favorite card, Spoil, because I'm a sucker for those abilities. And it's super, super good and limited. Is it constructed playable? I would say almost, but probably not. But limited, baby, you're going to be my all day long. So moving on, we have Paradox Engine. This is one of the masterpieces in the set. And it's a card that just screams, please break me, please break me. An artifact for 5 that its ability is whenever you cast a spell, you just untap all your non-land permanents. All my non-land permanents? That includes mana makers, doesn't it? So if I just have some mana rocks out there, let's just tap to make some mana, play something. Oh, I get to untap those. Well, let's just tap those and play something. Oh, I get to untap those. Is there any card in Magic that can infinitely recur itself? I can't think of any off the top of my head, but it goes infinite if there is. If there's any card that says you can play this from your graveyard, it goes infinite. And that just screams to me some amazingly broken combo. This is the Johnny card of the set, and I want to see this do crazy things. It also maybe has a place in a control shell. Oh, let me counter your spell. Oh, but I'm not actually spending mana. It's just, everything's untapped now, so we'll see where this goes, but it excites me, the possibilities of it. So next up, we've got a card that I made a hint at earlier, Peacekeeper Colossus. This is another vehicle that costs 3. It becomes a 6/6 with crew 4. That's pretty bad. But its ability is what makes it interesting. So for 1 of the white, you can just crew a vehicle. That's right, just any vehicle, just crew for the turn. For just 2 mana. All of a sudden, this crew 6 Consulate Dreadnought, you have a 7/11 on turn 4 for just 2 mana. I'm not sure if this card seems amazing, but it definitely seems interesting in the vehicle deck. The crew 4 on itself really shuts it down, but I like the card a lot. I'm interested to see what can be done with it, and I'm hoping that the vehicle deck can really exist, but we'll see what happens. We got another Johnny card here in Planar Bridge. This is a legendary artifact for 6, and its ability is simply pay 8, tap it, and get any permanent from your deck and put it onto the field. There's a lot of things that you can do with this. A lot. But it's expensive. Maybe too expensive. Not sure how I feel about this card. I like it, but I don't like it at the same time, and I'm hoping that there's some infinite way to break it, which I'm sure there probably is, but we'll see what happens. We have another rare in Scrap Trawler, a 3/2 for 3, and its ability is whenever it or another artifact is put into the grave, you can return a cheaper artifact from your grave to your hand. So it kind of recycles itself. Seems pretty interesting, and it also seems like one of those cards that's going to somehow go infinite at something. Definitely not as broken seeming as Paradox Engine, but it still seems pretty cool. It's also a 3/2 for 3 colorless, which is pretty relevant, so it seems definitely limited playable. And hey, if I get my little, one of my puzzle knots or whatever to come back, it's worth it, so definitely playable. Definitely high pickable for its colorlessness. And we've got another vehicle here. It's going to round out our video today. And we've got the Untethered Express. This is a vehicle for 4 with trample. And whenever it attacks, you put a +1/+1 counter on it. Oh yeah, it just has crew 1. Seems pretty absurd. Is it as good as Renegade Freighter? I think that is what determines how good this card is. Everybody knows Renegade Freighter is undeniably the absolute strongest card in Kaladesh Limited alone. Will it be that strong once this Aether Revolt's added to it? I don't know. But Untethered Express seems like a way to either balance that card or to do something maybe slightly better. I'm not sure what the answer is here. What essentially becomes a 5/5 on turn 5 attacking is definitely not as good as a 5/4 on turn 4. But considering that it has the counter shenanigans built into it, makes it really interesting. And it also goes along with the whole, green-white theme of counters, +1/+1 counters matter. I like the card, and I hope to see it good. This is probably something that I'll try to play, and I think it'll be strong and limited. Will it have a place in Standard? We'll see if vehicle decks pick up, but I'm not sure about that. So that is it for the Day 1 spoilers. There's quite a few out there, and there is sure to be more in the upcoming days. So I'm going to try to do a video on this either every day or every few days to kind of catch up and keep up with it. So let me know your thoughts. If you think my commentary is idiotic, if you think it is amazing, just leave that feedback. Likes and subscribes always help, and I'm always here to bring more content. Hopefully I'll have a webcam up and working sometime in the future. But overall, Aether Revolt looks like an exciting set with a very fun limited environment. I've definitely enjoyed the Kaladesh limited environment, especially when compared to something like Eldritch Moon, which as much as I wanted to like it, it wasn't really good. So I hope to see all you guys at your pre-releases, and I hope to be going to one or two myself there. Again, that is January 14th and 15th. So again, I am signing off for now, but this has been The Bearded Fool with the Aether Revolt Let's Talk Part 1. Tune in next time.